With some additional parts, we can convert our basic lever crane into all sorts of things, including a robot arm, a very simple robot arm. So let's have a quick look at the original crane. So the original lever crane was like that, with a winding handle that simply lifted up the lever arm, and that pivot there is the point around which the arm can move. So the basic crane, if we simply remove the little object and then get the string out of the way, so what we could do is just put it underneath, put a little bit of tape on there, and we can always sort of reconnect it later. So that's what we've got now. The basic arm moves just like it did before by winding the handle. Up it goes. Now it needs a bit more weight on it to bring it back down, but we're going to add some weight to it now as we sort of add more pieces on the end. So let's have a look at which pieces we could use, which extra items we could use. So little pieces of modelling foam are very useful. A cocktail stick, some little bits of card, possibly a magnet, although you may have already used a magnet in another idea that you've had, and a flexi straw. Well, let's look at the cocktail stick and the little foam cylinder first. Useful to have a pair of scissors and a pencil, other stationary items to help us with the improving the model. So there's our basic crane, and what we're going to do is add the cylinder to the end. But just like a human wrist can rotate, let's try and introduce rotation at that end. And the way we do it is by providing another pivot. You don't really need a point on the cocktail sticks. What you can do is get really close up, break it one way, break it the other, like that, and then in it goes in the back like that. At this end, what I've done is I've put a cut in it. Now you can do that with a pair of scissors, but you may already have the part with the cut in it. And that simply allows us to put other things like pieces of card in later on. So let's go to the front end of the crane lever, sometimes called the jib. And we need to make a hole that doesn't interfere with the piece of string that's already there. Make a hole in it. Well, best way to do it is use the cocktail stick first of all. This already has a hole in it. In it goes. Bring the two together. So now what we've got is we've got a part that can actually rotate at that end. So there it is. And just like our human wrist, it can rotate, and a robot arm would have a rotating wrist that allowed it great maneuverability when it wanted to pick an object up from a different angle, like that. What can we do next? Well, let's just remove it again, because we can now utilize the slit and explore using pieces of card which might be able to act as sort of grabbers. So just like your thumb and your forefinger, we can pick things up. We might be able to simulate that with a piece of card. Well, a very simple way to do it would be to take a strip of card, pop it in the slit, looks a bit like a sort of duck's bill, and then shape the card just like your thumb and forefinger. So that's a very simple representation of it. Let's see if we can get it to actually grip. There it goes. Now I had to move it open myself in order to do that, but it does illustrate the point that if we shape the paper correctly, the card correctly, we can get it to pick up objects of different shape. So that could then go back on. And now we have a robot arm which could maybe rotate something, turn it upside down. And of course the arm can move up or down as before. So that's one possible starting point. And there are all sorts of other shapes you could do for the piece of card. And maybe with thicker card, reinforce it, make it really strong, then it might be a very durable sort of arm that can pick things up. What else can we do? So we'll take that out, put that off to one side. A drinking straw. Well, that can be very useful. What we could do there is say, well, the drinking straw not only gives you a sort of an extension arm, it also lets you have an end which is flexible. So one of these flexible straws here, you can bend it to and fro. So how could we add that? Well, I think this one's a little bit too long, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it down. Maybe we can use that bit later, and then just use one end of it. Well, there are all sorts of possibilities for this. We don't have to just drill a larger hole, maybe with a pencil, into the end of the existing arm. We might want to explore drilling a hole in a different direction. So let's give that a go. So let's just drill a hole. Again, away from the string. If you drill the hole away from the string. There it goes. Point just popping through there. Let's see if we can pop this in. There it goes. Turn that around. So now we've got the possibility of something that can lift up like that and rotate round like that, or perhaps move up and down like that as well. If we add to that something as simple as a magnet, one of these sticky back magnets, then maybe we could make a little robot arm that can actually pick things up and move them around. So let's give it a go with a paper clip. Let's find a paper clip and do that. Sometimes finding a paper clip is a little bit harder than you would imagine. How about a little drawing pin? Would that work? There it goes. And there's our little drawing pin being picked up there. Well, with more card, with extra bits and pieces, there's no reason why you couldn't just use your imagination and come up with all sorts of different ideas for how we could use simple materials to make a robot arm that can pick objects up that you would like to pick up. For example, how could you pick up a ball? How could you make this into some sort of a lift for a person, right, to move them around? Machines like that do exist, where you can elevate a person to get them to the right place. You can make a lift for a person. It's not quite the right size seat, that is it, for it. So use your imagination, simple materials, see what other ideas you can come up with for the robot arm version of the lever crane.